So now we know, now you know, why little Timmy Geitner was chosen as the next secretary, Treasury Secretary by Obama. See, when you look at people in very high positions, the first thing that comes to your mind is, man, this person's qualified. You know, they've been doing this their whole life. There's no better choice. Or if there's a better choice, it's a close one. So that's at least fine with me because either of them are intelligent enough and know exactly what it takes to be in that position. And when you go to school and your teachers tell you, you know, go to school, continue getting an education, you'll be somebody, you'll be the next Treasury Secretary, you'll be the next president, you'll be the next so-and-so, it's a load of BS. Because you don't have to have any qualifications, except for one, to be in these positions of high power. And that one qualification is simple. We're going to put you in power. You're going to shut your mouth, of course. We're putting you in power so that you will shut your mouth. And you will not let anything happen to us, bankers. You're going to have a nice paycheck. You're going to be this big shot, the Treasury Secretary. You'll be on TV, you'll be on the news. People will ask you questions. You're going to pretend to know the answers. You're really completely unqualified to be in that position. But you're very qualified because you'll shut your mouth and cover up what we do. So that is all you need to get into a high position. Therefore, schooling means nothing. That's how this system works. So, this is a long read, by the way. But this is a very important read so you understand there's no difference between Democrat, Republican, Obama, Romney, Bush, Clinton, Al Gore, etc. There's no difference. These people are chosen well in advance to continue the cover-up. And as long as you have your people in the position or positions, your cover-up will continue. And if you have one guy known as the president who's willing to play ball with you, of course, which they are, because if they weren't, they wouldn't even be up there to be elected as a choice, they have the right to appoint people like Little Timmy Geitner, the Security Exchange stuff, CFTC personnel from time to time, the Supreme Court, stuff like that. They're appointed. They're not elected. They're not voted on. They're selected. And every time you look, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Security and Exchange Commission, CFTC, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Treasury Secretary, former New York Fed, the former guy before him, old Hank Paulson, he was a former banker, worked for the club, the boys. You follow me? So, this is credit gotta give credit to Daily Bail, B-A-I-L, as in like bailout, dailybail.com. Actually, it looks like a very interesting website that's up on their game here. I've never come across it until right now. So let me itch my nose. Sometimes that voice, mine is a little it hits like this little tone, like this precise frequency. It starts shaking my nose a little bit, makes it itch. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Sorry about that. How Goldman Sachs created crappy CDOs, also known as collateral debt obligations, sold them to AIG, forced AIG into bankruptcy, and got a $20 billion personal bailout, paid themselves billions in bonuses, and watched as little Timmy Geitner covered it all up. And you paid for it. Remember the TARP fund, the bailout, the too big to fail bailout? That's what this was about. Almost whatever it was, $200 billion bailout to AIG alone almost. And it went to paying these guys and their bonuses. See, when Jason at 4 gives you a bonus, it's a real bonus. It's a little cute little bonus. When these guys give you a bonus, you don't want to be anywhere near them when they give it. And Mr. Hank Paulson was CEO at the time when this happened and knew all about it. More truth about lack of Fed transparency. This is not entirely new if you've been following the work we've published from Janet Tavakoli, who is quoted extensively in the article below. Still, it underscores some of the more arcane points and delves into new territory with discussion of CDOs, the CDO substitutions. And again, that's collateralized debt obligations. They just come up with this crap, give it a name, and all of a sudden they're able to sell something. CDO, I can go on with a bunch of them. I'm not even going to go there. Easy to follow summary piece from Bloomberg's Richard Teitelbaum. Here's what you need to take from this. This is the summary of it all, by the way. But it goes into detail, and I'm going to read the detail. Here's the summary. Goldman Sachs put together a piece of garbage, CDOs, that they knew were garbage, bought credit default swaps on them, which is insurance protection if they end up being crap and fail, bought insurance on them from AIG, pushed AIG into bankruptcy by making claims on the garbage that they sold, those CDOs, and then got paid. Not by AIG, by you. You paid. Through the taxpayer bailout. Oh, and the guy who tried to cover all this up, that's what it says right here. Barack Obama picked him to be your Treasury Secretary. Is this a great country or what, he says. Little Timmy Geitner. So when people argue, oh, Obama got handed this mess and he's given some time, he doesn't want time. He doesn't need time. He's not asking for time. He's part of the cover-up. He just picked key players to keep the cover-up going. You think that's a chance? You think that's coincident that he did that? Not on your life. And do you think if somehow Romney wins, that he's just going to change things? And even if Timothy Geithner leaves and he chooses someone else to stand, guard the Treasury post, Treasury Secretary, you think that person who he chooses is going to come out and I've got a major investigation going on to the prior Secretary, Timothy Geithner, and the prior one before him, Hank Paulson, and this cover-up and the taxpayer, but I've got a major investigation. You think he's going to do that? No. He's going to continue doing what the rest of them are doing, covering it up until it just leaves the news. No one's really pressing on it. Congressmen are now more busy looking at other things. They don't care about that anymore until everyone just moves on. That's how it really works. That's how reality is. And again, not because of his qualifications will he be picked by Romney if Romney wins. It'll be because he keeps his mouth shut and is purposely covering something up. And he's at the top, so no other person under him at the Treasury Department is going to do anything unless he, who is chosen, says so. And Timothy Geithner is not saying so because he is part of the club and the club is covering for each other. So, let me continue. When a congressional panel convened a hearing on the government rescue of AIG in January, the public scolding of Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner got the most attention. Lawmakers said the former head of the New York Federal Reserve, had presided over a backdoor bailout of Wall Street firms and a cover-up. Geithner countered that he had acted properly to avert the collapse of the financial system. That's why he did what he did. This was not anything to do with the cover-up. It was strictly to save the USA from economic ruin. That's why he did it. But he did it. There was a cover-up, but he's claiming, let's not call it a cover-up. Let's just say it was the only action I had to do to save the United States. Because if I didn't do it, we'd all be homeless on the streets today. That's what they're telling us. So, a potentially more important development slipped by with less notice. Bloomberg Markets reports in its April issue, Representative Darrell Issa, the ranking Republican on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, placed into the hearing record a 5-page document itemizing the mortgage securities on which banks such as Goldman Sachs and Societe Generale had bought $62 billion in these insurance, or in these credit default swaps insurance from AIG. That is a massive amount of insurance for two companies to buy on products that they're selling and claiming are top grade assets. And this is just insurance. It's just like car insurance. Car insurance, you got to have it. You never know when it'll happen. Right? How many car accidents you've been throughout your life? And, it just happens every great once in a while. But the problem is, the cover-up comes in when you realize they knew they were trash from the beginning, fraudulently sold these things as not trash, They were trash, they knew they were trash, and then collected on the payout when they became trash to the rest of the world. That's fraud at the highest level. So, this 5-page document spilled the beans. These were the deals that pushed the insurer, AIG, to the brink of insolvency and were eventually paid in full at taxpayer expense. The New York Fed, which secretly engineered the bailout, prevented the full publication of the document for more than a year, even when AIG wanted it released. And who was in charge of that Fed, New York Fed? Little Timmy Geitner. And then he left, became Treasury Secretary, because that's the next step he needs to go to keep this thing covered up what they just started. You following me? The lack of disclosure shows how the government has obstructed a proper accounting of what went wrong in the financial crisis. Author and former investment banker William Cohen says, quote, the secrecy is one more example of how the whole bailout has been done in such a slithering manner. He wrote a book called House of Cards, Doubleday, 2009, about the unraveling of Bear Stearns Company. And he said there's been no accountability. Exactly, no accountability and no rule of law. So the CDOs identified. The document ISA made public cuts to the heart of the controversy of the September 2008 AIG rescue by identifying specific securities known as collateral debt obligations, CDOs, that had been insured with the company. The banks holding the credit default swaps, CDOs, a type of derivative, collected collateral as the insurer was downgraded and the CDOs tumbled in value. The public can now see for the first time how poorly the securities performed, with losses exceeding 75% of their notional value in some cases. Talk about a stinking pile of garbage. And they knew it was. Compounding this, the document and Bloomberg data demonstrates that the banks that bought the swaps from AIG are mostly the same firms that underwrote the CDOs in the first place. The banks should have to explain how they managed to buy protection from AIG primarily on securities that fell so sharply in value, says Daniel Kalachi, a former swaps trader and marketer who's now a structured finance consultant in Warren, New Jersey. In some cases, banks also owned mortgage lenders, and they should be challenged to explain whether they gained any insider knowledge about the quality of those loans bundled into CDOs, he says. Obviously, more insiders, the same guys doing it, know exactly what they're doing. They own both institutions. They know exactly what's happening. No, it's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Too uncanny. It's almost too uncanny, Kalachi says. If these banks had insight into the underlying loans because they had relationships with the banks or owned them, originators or servicers, that's at least unethical, the very least, he says. The identification of securities in the document, known as a Schedule A form, and data compiled by Bloomberg show that Goldman Sachs underwrote $17.2 billion of the $62 billion in CDOs that AIG insured, more than any other investment bank. Who? Goldman Sachs. There's that name again. No, it couldn't be, because as Lloyd Blankfein, whatever, said, they're doing God's work. They're doing God's work. God doesn't do this, so never mind. Forget it. Let's see. More than any other investment bank. Merrill Lynch and Company, now part of Bank of America, created $13.2 billion of those CDOs, and Deutsche Bank underwrote $9.5 billion. These tallies suggest a possible reason why the New York Fed kept so much under wraps. Professor James Cox of Duke University School of Law says, quote, they may have been trying to shield Goldman Sachs. You think so? For Goldman's sake or not, or out of micro concerns that other investment bank would be at risk. Poor performers. Goldman Sachs spokesman Michael Duvalli declined to comment. Why? Why do you Michael, what's up, buddy? You nothing? I can't talk. I have nothing to say. You have nothing to say because anything you say is either going to be a lie or will incriminate the hell out of you. And even if you lie, it'll probably still incriminate the hell out of you. So it's probably your best decision to just decline to comment. Schedule A also makes possible a more complete examination of why AIG collapsed. Joseph Cassano, the former president of the AIG Financial Products Unit that sold the swaps, said on a December 2007 conference call that his firm pulled back from selling swaps on U.S. subprime residential CDOs in late 2005. The list shows that the $21.2 billion in CDOs minted after 2005, mostly based on prime and commercial mortgages, performed as badly as or worse than the earlier subprime vintages. A lawyer for Cassano declined to comment. As details of the cover-up emerge, so does anger at the perceived conflicts. Philip Angelides, chairman of the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, at a hearing held by his panel on January 13th, questioned how banks could underwrite poisonous securities and then bet against them. Quote, "It sounds to me a little bit like selling a car with faulty brakes and then buying an insurance policy on the buyer of those cars. Not the buyer buying insurance, but you, because you have the foresight to know that that car's going to blow up. I want insurance on that guy's car." What? You own the car? No. But I want insurance in case his car blows up. Pfft. What's the chances of of a person's car blowing up? Sure, we'll write the hell out of this insurance contract. Holy crap, I just barely signed my signature on that and the car blew up. Damn it, now we owe you guys. Luck was on Goldman's side. Sorry, gotta pay. Janet Tavakoli, founder of Tavakoli Structured Finance, Inc., a Chicago-based consulting firm, says the New York Fed secrecy has helped hide who's responsible for the worst of the disaster. Quote, "The suppression of the details in the list of counterparties was part of the cover-up," she says, and she's right. Absolutely right. We need to know who the counterparties are and what's the details, what amounts are involved. Emails between the Fed and AIG officials that Representative Issa, released in January, showed that the efforts to keep Schedule A under wraps came from the New York Fed. Revelation of the messages contributed to the heated atmosphere at the House hearing. Quote, "What date did you know there was a cover-up?" Republican Congressman Brian Bilbrey of California demanded of Geitner. Lawmakers used the word cover-up more than a dozen times as they peppered Timothy Geitner with questions. Geitner said that he wasn't involved in matters of disclosure and that his former colleagues did the best that they could. In other words, Hank Paulson and those guys, they did the best they could. They really did. And he's got to stick up for them too. Of course. He's sticking up for the club. Of course he's going to. Anybody that's part of the club is part of the club. Plain and simple. So, in January 19th, in that statement, the New York Fed said AIG at all times remained responsible for complying with its disclosure requirements under the securities laws. The government has committed more than $182 billion to AIG and now owns 80% of AIG because of the bailout. Document withheld. In late November 2008, the insurer was planning to include Schedule A in a regulatory filing until a lawyer for the Fed said it was not necessary. We don't need that. According to the emails, the document was an attachment to the agreement between AIG and Maiden Lane III, the fund that the Fed established in November 2008 to hold the CDOs after the swap contracts were settled. AIG paid its counterparties, the banks, Goldman and boys, the full value of the contracts after accounting for any collateral that had been posted and took the devalued CDOs in exchange. As requested by the New York Fed, AIG kept the bank names out of the December 24th filing and edited out a sentence that said they got full payment because it would have enraged everyone to know back then, rather than take a haircut on that, which they should have, they got the full 100%. And again, who paid for it? You did. The New York Fed's January 2010 statement said the sentence was deleted because AIG technically paid slightly less than 100 cents on the dollar. Yeah, it was like 99.8 cents on the dollar. Before the New York Fed ordered AIG to pay the banks in full, the company was trying to negotiate to pay off the credit default swaps at a discounted or haircut. Hello? Hey. Well, I'm right in the middle of a video right now. Live. Doing it live. Alright. Bye. Answer the phone live. I can't do it. I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. I'll do it live. 5, 4, 3. I'm JSnip4. Yes! I love Bill O'Reilly when he did that and they busted him. Put that on the internet. God, that's my favorite. Where was I? Before the New York Fed ordered AIG to pay the banks in full, the company was trying to negotiate to pay off the credit default swaps at a discount or haircut. No, we can't have that. Our club gets paid in full. And if you don't have the money, the taxpayer will pick up the tab. Seabass is going to pick up the tab. Seabass said that. If that fine gentleman over there, Little Timmy Geitner, is Seabass, then yes. You know what that's from. By March 2009, responding to a request from Christopher Dodd, chairman of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, AIG released the names of the counterparty banks, finally. In a filing later that month, AIG included Schedule A, showing bank names while withholding all identification of the underlying CDOs and the amounts of the collateral each bank had collected. We still don't want to share that with you. It's just, we can't. Trust us. It's for your best interest. I'm spitting all over myself. The document had more than 800 redactions. In May of 2009, AIG again filed Schedule A, this time with about 400 redactions. It revealed that Paris-based Société Générale got the biggest payout from AIG, or $16.5 billion, followed by Goldman Sachs, which got $14 billion, and then Deutsche Bank and Merrill Lynch. Now hold on a second. 4 banks. Let's start from the first. Société Générale, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Merrill Lynch. That's 4. And 2 of those 4 are not even in America. Not even American companies. Overseas banks. And the first one I mentioned that got the biggest payout, Société Générale. Overseas bank. Got your and my tax dollar money to bail out them. Interesting. And then followed by one of our favorites, Goldman Sachs, second place. And then third place was Deutsche Bank, another foreign overseas bank. That's incredible, isn't it? Well, not really if you understand that all of those banks I just mentioned are all part of the club. The same guys. They're all part of the same the club. That's why. You think if there was a credit union, Brandon or Valrico or Tampa Credit Union was somehow in there with those credit default or those collateralized debt obligations and got some kind of payout from AIG, you think they would have been on that list? Not a chance in hell. Not a chance in hell. Number one, they don't do that kind of dirty deeds like these banks do and then go try to get paid on the backside after destroying it. But if they did, they're not part of the club. Therefore, you're not getting any of the money. The club's getting it all. The right to know. This is something that belongs in the public domain because it was done with public money, Representative Issa says. The public has the right to know what was done with their money and who benefited from it. Now, thanks to ISA, the list is finally out, and specific information about AIG's unraveling can be learned from it. At the January 27th hearing, the New York Fed was still arguing that the contents of Schedule A should not fully be disclosed. Thomas Baxter, the New York Fed's general counsel, testified that divulging the names of the CDOs could erode their value. Quote, "We will be hurt because traders in the market will know what we're holding. We don't want to release it. That's why. I mean, come on." So you don't want traders or the world to know you're holding a stinking pile of garbage that we've been saying the whole time you've been holding, that you can keep saying it's some kind of asset. Gotcha. And specifically who and how much. Jack Gutt, a spokesman for the New York Fed, declined to comment, as did AIG's Mark Herr. No, you don't say. Tavakoli also says that the poor performance of the underlying securities, which are actually specific slices or tranches of CDOs, shows they were toxic in the first place and were probably replenished with bundles of mortgages that were particularly troubled. Managers who oversee CDOs after they are created have discretion in choosing the mortgage bonds used to replenish them. Quote, "The original CDO deals were bad enough," she says. "For some that allow reinvesting or substitution, any reasonable professional would ask why these assets were being traded into the portfolio. The Schedule A shows that we should be investigating these deals." Among those are the CDOs on Schedule A with notional values of more than $1 billion. The worst performer was a tranche identified as Davis Square Funding Ltd's DVSQ 2006-6A CP. Whatever the hell fund or whatever that is. It was held by Societe Generale, underwritten by Goldman Sachs, and managed by, haven't heard of this one, TCW Group Inc., a Los Angeles-based unit of Societe Generale. Oh, okay. According to Bloomberg data, it lost 77.7. Oh, there's those 3 sevens. Lucky 7. Yeah. It was lucky 7. They nailed sevens. Straight sevens on that banker bailout in 2008. Hell yeah. It lost 7.7% of its value, though it isn't in default and continues to pay. Societe Generale oh, we're going to get one that's going to comment. James Galvin and TCW spokesman Aaron Freeman declined to comment. Oh, darn. I'm sure one of these people are going to talk. I mean, aren't they? Ed Grebeck, CEO of Tempest Advisors. This is like the final piece here. A global debt market strategy firm in Stamford, Connecticut, agrees that more digging is necessary. You need all the documentation and more than that, all the emails, he says. That would allow us to understand what went wrong and how to fix it going forward. Oh, you'll find out what went wrong by looking at those emails. And you'll also find out how to fix it going forward. But I can pretty much assure you, when you look at those emails, the fix is going to be, we can't vote for the Democrat or Republican parties anymore because they both are put in front of our face as the only two choices. And the guys that happen to get those two nominations from those parties are always part of the club. And since they're always part of the club, they're going to choose more club members to be in the secretary position and the Security Exchange Commission and the CFTC and everywhere else. And this will continue. So the fix is to not vote anymore? Well, no, because if you don't vote, then they're going to keep getting their guys in place. But if you do vote, they continue getting their guys in place. What does a halfway intelligent person, what kind of conclusion would one come to on how to remove these people from power? If our only legal choice is to remove them by voting, and voting actually doesn't work, let me crack open my history book for a second. Cracking it open in the old head, by the way. I'm looking down at my keyboard, pretending I'm reading a history book. It's classic. Oh, here's a page. Brutal, bloody revolution. That's what history shows happens every single time. Huh. But we're so far beyond that. I mean, we're not going to see that again now. Not in this day and age. Not us. I mean, not the Roman Empire of now. I don't hear gunshots. I don't hear. I mean, come on. Not here. It can't happen here. Nah. No way. So now we know why Little Timmy Geitner was chosen for the position he got as Secretary Treasury.